morning, everyone, to this week's chilly edition of Coffee with Jim and James. You know, James, before we get started, this week and last week have been unprecedented. And it reminds me of a time. Let me tell you a quick story. You know, I've traveled the world to and from all over. And I remember going through the Rocky Mountains one time on my way to the Grand Teton, okay? I was at about 13,000 feet. I had my pack mule. I was going along blizzard. I could barely see. And then all of a sudden this image appeared to me and it was cold. It was like last week in Texas. I mean, cold. And I'm like, is that Sasquatch? And I'm trudging forward. And all of a sudden I see an entity riding a yak. And I get closer and I say, hello there. And this person opens up their pelts. And who is it but Stuart? I said, Stuart, what are you doing up here? He's like, well, I just got done with a government meeting. I have to meet a muni, and this is the best way to get there. And the APGA will do anything to see our members. All right. I may have embellished that whole story a little bit, but you know what? It was a little entertaining, wasn't it?
I can't believe our guest put up with it. Stuart is a total setup too, because we did the pre-show and Jim had a plan, but he had an idea and said, I'm just going to run with it. And we trusted him. Yeah. And that's what he came up with.
And he was pretty accurate. We do have a few members in Colorado and some of that, hinterlands.
Some of that. Well, Jim, you were speaking my language. I thought it was going to be me on the yak because this past week here in Texas has been something special. And by the time this airs, I can imagine how many more folks will be impacted by it. I know we put something out this week, but man, we see you, Texas, because we are you. You know, we're our headquarters is here. We have a lot of clients and folks in the industry that call Texas home, and Oklahoma, and everybody impacted here in the South. So it's been a very humbling week. You know, when you have to boil snow to flush your toilet, it makes you appreciate some of that infrastructure. And so, you know, what a fitting time to have Stuart join us today from the APGA. Stuart, good morning. And I always let the guests do their own intros because that's the most awkward thing we can do for a guest.
Thank you. I'll see how awkward I can be. And I'll say this. So my background actually started in the engineering world. I worked for Chevron. It's a little company in California.
Heard of them.
And so I worked at a refinery in South Mississippi as an engineer, facility engineer, and then had the opportunity to do some upstream work. So my kind of production story related to cold weather is the assets that I was working on for Chevron were in Western Pennsylvania, and they had actually bought these from an independent producer up there. And no offense to my good friends at Chevron that I still have, but somehow they were convinced, the due diligence team was convinced that wells didn't freeze in Western PA like you folks are experiencing down there in Texas. And I'll admit, it probably doesn't happen in West Texas until this week, but it does happen in Western PA. So I know the challenges that those producers are going through. Definitely heart goes out to them. And heck, man, you can't even get on the road to get out there and get the gas flowing. So firsthand experience with well freeze-ins and frozen dump lines and all that fun stuff on production sites. But
man, Stuart, I'm from West Texas, and I can tell you my entire life growing up there, I've never seen anything like what we're seeing over this past week, and we're just simply not built for it. I've had some friends from up north that laughed and say, it's minus whatever. Look, we're built to be cool down here. We're hot, so we don't have a lot of those niceties. And man, it showed this week. But the good thing about Texas, we're gonna get to work. We talked about that a little bit in the pre-show. Is that's one thing we do well, and I know the South does really well. So we're excited to get started. But Stuart, VP of Government Relations at APGA, tell us about that a little bit, and a little bit about APGA, maybe for those that maybe don't even know they're a member, right?
Yeah. No, well, that's good. Yeah. So from Chevron, I took a right turn or maybe a wrong turn into government affairs. And that's where I am now for APGA. So the American Public Gas Association, we like to say we represent all public utilities, but not all public gas utilities are our members. We have about 700 members in 38 states. There's about 1,000 total across the U.S. But yeah, our job is to represent them in the halls of Congress or within conversations with the regulators, both, PHMSA, Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, who you folks and your listeners probably know a little bit more than maybe some of the folks at DOE, the folks at EPA, the alphabet soup of regulatory agencies. So I'm supposed to be in charge of that. We'll see how that goes. Sometimes some days are better than others, but no doubt. I mean, this week has definitely been a challenge for a lot of our members, just recognizing that, we like to take pride in that we feel like natural gas has flowed to the homes. This just been the crazy supply chain and just the way things are connected just has made it hard on everybody that is a part of this natural gas process. So this has been a crazy week for me. And I'm not quite as bad as you down there, James, but I do have some white stuff on the ground. It is snowing here in DC where I'm located. So
awesome.
Well, I do have a little bit of sand flurries outside. Well, wait a minute. Hurricane season, I will be shriveled up in the corner in the fetal position, screaming. Let's stay on track with the government relations. Stuart, the topic of Section 5 has come up. I've seen it in the news and such like that. And I think that pertains a lot to what I call, or what James and I call the munis, the public gas systems. Can you elaborate a little bit on Section 5 for us, please?
Yeah, no, and keep me from getting too wonky here. This is my world, and I recognize a lot of your listeners don't understand all these acronyms and terms. You guys are used to.
We are big fans of passionate tangents. So you have the floor, sir.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'll start here and say that, I'm not trying to pit us against the investor-owned utilities or maybe some of the bigger utilities, the names you're more familiar with, Xcel Energy, CenterPoint, One Gas. But we are unique in that our utility members are community owned. And so they are not for profits. So every dollar they make goes back to the community in some way. And obviously that's almost 99% through the utility. There's typically a kind of a wall between how other areas of the city spend money and the utility. But anyway, Section 5 is a very important issue for us because it does really impact that cost structure. So when you look at the two big laws governing electric transmission, electric distribution, and natural gas transmission and distribution, they're pretty much the exact same except for one provision, and that's what's in Section 5. And so basically, our members, the natural gas distribution utilities, can't go to the regulator, which is in this case the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission or FERC, and ask for refunds if they felt like they were overcharged. And so things happen, price of gas fluctuates, things like that. And so they want to have the ability to go to FERC and say, hey, we feel like the pipeline may have overcharged us in this situation. At least hear us out. At least let's have a discussion about, is there an opportunity to collect some of that overcharge for one reason or another?
So
again,
you're saying that it's like overcharge protection. And you're saying electric has had this, and you're just looking for parity when it comes to that.
Yep, that's correct.
Awesome.
And again, just harping back on that not-for-profit, that customer-owned aspect of our member is we're not trying to pad anybody's pockets. Like, this is purely going back to the customer through, capital projects, replacing pipe, whatever the utility thinks is good for that system. So
awesome. So that leads great into really another portion. And I'm glad you kind of bring that up because I know, a lot of your members are looking for ways to get people back to work too, right? At the end of the day. And so, do you ever take off your government relations hat? Is that your permanent hat? All right, we'll just say wear that hat now. And let's talk about American infrastructure bonds. And can you explain that really to our audience and our industry? And, how is that going to affect our industry and the people involved in it?
Yeah. So we're unique in that we have access, our members have access to public financing. And so, with that comes different bonds, different investment types. And so American infrastructure bonds are what we feel is a very timely way to put people back to work, because right now, and I was joking with you guys earlier that I'm going to forget, and I forgot again, but let me get it right. So right now, our municipalities can currently issue tax exempt bonds. These American infrastructure bonds are taxable bonds. And so that's all I can say about the differences. I'll let y'all figure that out from your CPA or your investment folks. But basically, it's valuable because it's another tool to use for capital projects. So if you want to put in new pipelines, new assets, here's another way you can get financing for that. And so to your point about putting people back to work, that this is it, right? Here's another opportunity for folks to get money for big projects. And it's, like obviously we're pushing it from the pipeline aspect, but these bonds can be used for broadband, they can be used for water infrastructure. And so we've got a lot of friends helping us out push this through Congress, because it can be huge for public utilities, all aspects of it.
And we're all for putting people back to work, aren't we, Jimmy?
Amen, brother. I tell you what, and that's a great opportunity if people understand and learn a little bit about that and Google it and do some research. And like you said, talk to the accounting folks as to which way we should go. What a better way to, one, make our infrastructure better, more reliable, continue on the safety aspect, and get people back to work. That to me is not even a trifecta, it's a quadfecta.
And we know a guy that if you have questions about it, that we can point you to. He's right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Stuart, let me get back to what James was talking about a little bit earlier before, and we've all been talking about, especially on the pre-show. We've had some unbelievable weather phenomenons lately, and a lot of chatter in the news about, oh, we should be doing this or we should be doing that. And the topic of energy choice has definitely come up. And what's some of the thoughts that you have about that as far as energy choice and what that means to the APGA?
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, you will never find an APGA member that says we don't need all of the above. I mean, obviously they deliver gas. That's their mission. That's their goal. They're passionate about that, but they recognize it's a big world, right? I mean, and as far as I can tell, this TV behind me, it doesn't run off natural gas, at least not directly, right?
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Maybe one day, but yeah, not directly, right? And so our guys focus on that direct use. The gas to your furnace, the gas to your range, gas to your water heater. And so anyway, so when we think about energy choice, we want that option to be available for everybody, right? I mean, we don't want people to have to buy heat pumps because they can only get electricity. And so that's our hope, is that direct use of natural gas remains an option for folks around the country. It was unfortunate. It's been, a couple of years ago now at this point, that the city of Berkeley in California banned the use of natural gas. And so we hated to see that. Got to be honest, probably wasn't as big a surprise, but we hated to see it for those folks there in California. And so kind of this energy choice language that we've been throwing around is really directly connected to kind of a state effort we have going. We're working with a lot of different stakeholders, recognize this is, we talked about jobs, like the labor folks are all over this, because they recognize the value for them and for their labor, their union employees, especially, to have the ability to, still be pipe fitters, still be that type of jobs. But anyway, there's a group of states that's we're trying to help legislators understand, how important energy choice is. Yep. And once they understand, get them to pass legislation that basically at the state level prohibits a municipality or a city from banning natural gas or banning propane even. And so that's really kind of the gist of energy choice. By all means, we're watching what's happening at the federal level. So what's happening at the U.S. Senate, the U.S. House of Representatives. When it comes to energy choice, we don't want any policies that, similarly do that at the federal level. I mean, it's a little harder to prohibit a utility, but still, I mean, there could be laws kind of put out there that make it harder to get natural gas to your home or harder to use natural gas to your home. And so, that's kind of the overarching broad view of it. And I'd like to say that we energy choices, like I said, is broad term, but we want to make sure that customers have that opportunity to use natural gas for a host of reasons. It's efficient, directly using it versus sending it to a power plant, convert it to an electron, and then getting it to your house.
Right.
It's cheap, it's affordable, it's clean.
Yep.
All that stuff. I'll get off my soapbox and let you guys.
It's a great soapbox, and I really think the spirit of it. I mean, when you say the word choice, I think this week, if it would have been sunny in Texas and James had the choice of having some solar panels, or if it had been windy, to have a little wind turbine helping him out during this time. I'm in Florida, and we get a little bit of sunshine down here, but there's also efficiencies, there's comfort, there's cooking with natural gas and such like that I may not want to mix, but I don't want to be prohibited from anything. I might want to be just like a 401k. I would like a portfolio that's pretty widespread. So I like what I'm hearing with that.
Right.
I think the excited part too is, Stuart, for those of us that are not, fighting the good fight out there like you are, that are right in the heart of it, it gives me peace of mind to know that people are out there working on this stuff for our industry, right? We've been, one of our goals this year with this show is also highlighting the need for people to get involved, to understand that the things that are going on in our industry, people have been working on this, knew it was coming, are continuing to work on it, and will continue to work on it. And we have a seat at the table, a lot of seats at the table, to really work on these opportunities even. And a lot of people just, it's a black box behind a certain point, right? Behind the curtain, they don't know how it functions. And so seeing and knowing that we have Stuart in DC working for us, and people like Aaron, and we have committees and task force and other associations working on making sure we have a future and a seat at the table, I think is refreshing. So thank you for that, Stuart. Did you have one more thing? I don't want to.
Yeah, actually, if I could say two things. Sorry, I got you guys are triggering all these things, but I'll
Don't
keep
do
it
it.
to two.
Do it.
So one thing I always try to take the opportunity to do is talk about the clean aspect of natural gas, and just how we get kind of written off as, oh, you're a fossil fuel, you got to be dirty, right? There's huge environmental benefits of using natural gas, and actually, while our members don't do the big transmission delivering natural gas to power plants, I mean, that's the best example, right? You look at the natural gas generation and how that has been huge from an environmental standpoint, just decreasing emissions. I think one of the things I like to talk about with our members and our aspect of the supply chain is that we operate infrastructure. Like our expertise is not anything related to the molecule. It's the pipeline, it's the valves, it's the meters. And so, for these folks kind of pushing natural gas out of the equation, you're taking away that expertise. And so how many ever years from now, I don't know for sure. I mean, somebody smarter than me is going to figure this out, but those pipelines may not deliver, methane, CH4. They're going to deliver renewable natural gas, right? Biogas, gas from a landfill, or gas from an agriculture production that would have been emitted into the air and causes, global warming or climate change or whatever. And so that's the aspect that I really like to harp on, is like, you guys, like, natural gas now, but the future, hydrogen, renewable natural gas. And so, I think that's the element that's so important for folks to realize. The other thing I was going to mention too is, don't put me on a pedestal. Like, sure, I know the wonky details behind GR, which is government relations, but that's because, for some reason or another, I thought it was cool. now that I'm living it, I may not agree so much, but anyway, but your listeners, by all means, that guy turning the wrench out in West Texas that's listening to us right now, like, you can call your congressman just as easy as I can. And I'll be honest, like, he wants to hear from you a lot more than I do. So, I'll tell some resources here in a minute, but if you see a bill or you hear one of these American infrastructure bonds and it's your senator that's sponsoring it, there's nothing going to stop you from calling him and his office and saying, hey, I heard some wackadoo talk about this bond issue. If it's going to put people back to work, you better be voting for it, So that's my 2 cents for that right there.
Stuart just called himself a wackadoo, I think, and it's so I feel like we bonded instantly. Stuart,
it's on the internet. It's there forever. It's
hashtag wackadoo. So yeah,
that's the teaser right there. So Stuart, we ask one question to wrap the show every time, and I don't know, maybe we'll change it one day, but today is not that day. So if you watched one before, you probably already know what's coming. But Stuart, do you love what you do?
I do. Yes, very much so.
And why?
Okay.
I can't get away with that. Yeah, I do, James. It's fine.
Hey, so I'm an engineer, guys. Black and white. Yes. No. No. Yeah. So I mean, long story short, or maybe long story long, I had the opportunity to run for kind of student body president or whatever when I was in college. It wasn't president. It was another kind of student government position. And actually lost that run campaign. But it gave me the opportunity, because I lost, to take a semester off and go to DC and intern for senator. I'm from Mississippi, so Senator Cochran, he's no longer with us, but I had the opportunity to interview or work with him as an intern. And man, it just flipped my world on its head to know, here I am, and I can make an impact, right? I can be involved in public policy, be involved in government relations. And my dad would have killed me because I was 8 hours from graduating with a civil engineering degree. So if I was to change my major and be poli-sci or whatever, go to law school, he'd be like, heck no, you're getting an engineering degree. But that was the best thing too, because I was it, man. I was out in the field. I was at the refinery for 4 years. I was out in the oil fields of West PA for 4 years, 4 years. And so, I had the experience. And so I love taking that experience into where I am now and really recognizing, I go to the Hill or I go talk to PHMSA or, somebody at DOE. I'm like, look, guys, this is bad. This is bad policy. And this is what it's going to do, because I saw it. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, long story long, I love what I do. And it's because I can kind of really see that impact and, kind of see the change, I guess. Sometimes sooner rather than later. I mean, if folks watch, your news channel of choice, you probably realize Congress doesn't do a lot, but there is some instances where they actually do stuff, and that's cool to see.
Yeah. It's interesting because in my mind, by you talking that way, I think for a lot of the viewers and munis will call them and such like that, might have the idea now that, the politicians aren't just over there. They're actually part of us, and APGA is a conduit for us. Maybe we could even go directly. I mean, you've given some strong words to say, hey, call that person, let them know how you feel. And a lot of people might think, oh, I can't call a congressman or a senator. Well, you can, right?
You can.
And that's really important to take away. And we're all people, right? And we all really, when you think about it, we want the best for everybody, we as an industry and as a country and as a world too. So yeah, good words of advice. I really like that. Yeah. Stuart, before we wrap it up, if somebody wants to learn a little bit more about the APGA and they might be computer savvy, like I'm trying to be, how would I do that? What would be my path to finding that?
Yeah, no. So we try to make it easy. So apga.org, O-R-G is our website. And I am more partial to the advocacy tab because that's where my world is. So that's where you can find all the information. If you do want a little bit more about Section 5, you do want a little bit more about the infrastructure bonds. And then, energy choice is a term. We also use a term direct use of natural gas. So kind of like I said, we're not really in the business of getting gas to a power generation. We're getting gas to your home or your business. And so we call that direct use. And so find out all kinds of fun facts about, the importance of direct use of natural gas and energy choice on apga.org.
I like it. That's good.
Yeah.
On behalf of James and I, we thank you. It was absolutely great. And I will share that with the week going, Stuart was more than accommodating. We had to do a couple reschedules, and Stuart.
I don't think anybody wanted to see me in the state I was yesterday or Wednesday. That's for sure.
Tucked into boots.
Tucked into boots, 3 days waiting. Yeah, so accommodating. We appreciate that, Stuart. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say this is probably the best APGA episode we have had, with the exception of Aaron.
There we go. Yeah, Aaron killed it. Tell Aaron we said hello, and all our friends at APGA. We've had, like I said, long membership there, lots of involvement, a lot of overlap. We've had initiatives that we've worked together on, and I'm sure we'll continue to.
Yep, absolutely. And again, folks, thanks for joining us for this special edition of Coffee with Jim and James. Please reach out to the APGA, reach out to Stuart. You can also find him on LinkedIn as well. Make your voice known, ask questions, learn. That's a big thing. And the most important thing, always stay safe. Until the next episode of Coffee with Jim and James, we will see you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.